This is the Cortez City Council regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 13th, 2026, and the time is 7:30 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have the roll call?
Kiefhofer.
Here.
DeHaven.
Here.
Spruill.
Here.
Dobry.
Here.
Randall.
Here.
Lewis.
Here.
Medina.
Here. All right, we have a quorum tonight. Do we have approval of the agenda?
Madam Mayor, I move that council approve the agenda as presented for January 13th, 2026.
Second.
A motion made by Lewis and seconded by Dobry.
Randall.
Yes.
Kiefhofer.
Yes.
DeHaven.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Dobry.
Yes.
Spruill.
Yes.
Medina.
Yes. All right, I have a letter I'd like to read before I get into the next agenda item. It's going to be hard for me to say, but my fellow council members and the residents of the city of Cortez, it is with a heavy heart and following deep reflection that I stand before you today to announce my resignation from City Council effective April 28th, 2026. Serving this city in the role as a council member and later as mayor has been one of the greatest honors of my life. Together, we have navigated challenges and celebrated milestones that have made our community a better place to live, work, and thrive. I am incredibly proud of what we have accomplished during my tenure, and I want to express my sincerest gratitude to my colleagues on this council and the dedicated city staff for their hard work and tireless partnership. During the past few months, my personal and professional responsibilities outside of City Hall have increased significantly. To lead the city effectively requires a level of time, energy, and presence that I can no longer provide at the standard this community deserves. After long deliberation, I have come to realize that I must step back in order to prioritize ever-increasing demands upon my time that are conflicting with important commitments to my family and my career. I've dedicated over 10 years of service to this city, and I'm confident I am leaving it better than I found it. I want to thank the residents and council for your trust in me. Your passion for our city is what drives its success, and I have no doubt that our community will continue to thrive under the leadership of the next elected council. Though I'm stepping down from this role, I will always remain a steadfast supporter of our city and its future, and thank you for the opportunity to serve. Thank you all. It was a hard decision, but I felt it right that the citizens pick my replacement instead of leaving at a later time. So my 4-year term, I'm ending 2 years early, and so my seat will be on the ballot. Thank you, guys. Okay, the consent agenda. Number 2 on our agenda is the consent agenda. The listing under a consent agenda is a group of items to be acted on with a single motion and vote. This agenda is designed to expedite the handling of limited routine matters by City Council. Either the public or a council member may request that an item may be removed from the consent agenda at the time prior to council's vote. The mayor I will ask if a citizen or council member wishes to have any specific item removed from the consent agenda for a discussion after reading. A, approval of the minutes for the City Council meeting on December 9th and special City Council work session on December 17th, 2025. B, approval of the expenditure list for January 13th, 2026. C, approval of a hotel and restaurant liquor license renewal for Rudowski Unlimited LLC, DBA Rudowski Unlimited, located at 2310 East Empire Street, Cortez. D, approval of a fermented malt beverage and wine off-premises liquor license renewal for Safeway store number 1892, located at 1580 East Main Street, Cortez. E, approval of a hotel and restaurant liquor license renewal for Lakeside Lanes, Inc., DBA Lakeside Lanes, located at 410 Lakeside Drive, Cortez. F, approval of a hotel and restaurant liquor license renewal for El Burro Pancho LLC DBA Gustavo's Authentic Mexican Restaurant and Bar located at 125 East Main Street, Unit A, Cortez. At G, approval of a hotel restaurant liquor license renewal for Hunan Kitchen, aka DBA Hunan Chinese Restaurant, located at 2561 East Main Street, Cortez. And H, approval of a special event permit to allow for Pet's Sake to host an event in the Turquoise Raven Art Gallery, located at 104 East Main Street, Cortez, on March 21st, 2026, from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Do we have an approval of the consent agenda?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Dobry and seconded by Randall.
Spurl,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
DeHaven,
Yes.
Kiefhoffer,
Yes.
Dobry,
Yes.
Medina.
Yes. Okay. We're on number 3 now on our agenda, public participation. Individuals may not comment on an item that's later on in the agenda during the public participation time. There's no limit to the number of speakers, although this public comment will be held to an overall time limit of 30 minutes, and each speaker has a time limit of 3 minutes per person. All right, I have our first comment card. Do we have any more? Okay. All right, I'd like to invite James McGinley up to the podium. Thank you. Oh, we can't hear you quite well.
Red light's on.
Oh, it needs to be green.
What's green? How's that?
Perfect.
Thank you. I am deeply concerned for our community. Over the last week, I've given more than 50 people that have long lived in this community, all middle class, left, far right, the opportunity to tell me that my concern was unfounded and that I didn't need to come and express it to you. They share my concern. They told me to come. We're dying for meaningful work, living wage jobs in this community, vibrant economic development. And our main industries are drying up: tourism, fossil fuels, agriculture going the way of our water. The resource I can see that we can develop is ourselves. A month ago, by chance, I discovered that hundreds of communities around are doing just that by focusing on upgrading, upscaling, bridging out of poverty their impoverished citizens. Without question, it's bringing their communities great joy, and they continue to invest in the programs which suggest to me that it's working for them. The methodologies, the roadmaps, the tools they're using, equivalent to what I used to get from the Covey organization when I was an exec in high tech. I didn't know they were there. They're there. They will be donated to the library tomorrow. I think there's a good chance they'll be there. We're in the poverty management business here in Cortez. It's very nice, but the way the economy is going, we can be pretty sure those funding sources are going away too. If we convert from the poverty management to the human development business, as these other communities have, it certainly would increase our odds of attracting new funding and maybe new businesses. It's the best option I can see. At the Facebook group Cortez People Caring, there are live links to these materials. I've asked the council for a follow-up. Please tell me if I should not be concerned, or if I should, how I can help. James McGinley, Master Jesus Base Camp, 111 South Elm Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak, who didn't turn in a comment card? Okay, thank you. We'll move on our agenda. Number 4 is presentations. We have none tonight, so we're going to move on to number 5, public hearings. 5A is resolution number 1, series 2026, council will consider a site plan review for LePew LLC on 1880 Industrial Road, presented by Nancy Dosdall, our contract city planner.
Good evening. It's great to be back here. Is that all right? So as stated, the request here tonight is for a site plan for a 4,000 square foot office shop building at 1880 Industrial Drive, submitted by 1880 Industrial LLC, also doing business as known as LePew. This project has been a long time coming in front of you, and due to that, in part, it is being reviewed under the old land use code. So I want to make note of that. I have it in front of me, so if there's questions, I can go back and look that up. But it's important to make note of that. I think we also can make note that the applicant's representative is appearing virtually, although the applicants are here also, so I'm not sure who's speaking on their behalf, but their representative is virtually online. One of the major issues with this project has been drainage, so the contract city engineer is also online if you have questions for him. I also need to make note, and so you can see right here that the property at 1880 Industrial Drive is located in the industrial park. I put the star on there. You can also see that the building is already on the property. There was an oversight by staff in that grading permits and building permits were issued for this building prior to submittal of a site plan review to the Planning Commission as required by code. It was caught prior to final CO for the building, so they're operating under a temporary CO as we moved the project through the public process. Just want to make note that staff did work hard to change processes and put other processes in place to make sure that that kind of oversight hasn't happened again or won't happen again. So with the site plan, we've got that there in front of you. It's 4,000, it's an office shop building. It's zoned industrial, a 4.1.6 acre property located in the industrial park. It is bounded on the northwest and south by industrially zoned properties, and to the east is Carpenter Reserve. With a site plan, the main issues to consider are really standard, development standards. As you can see, generally, does it meet parking, does it meet setbacks, etc. The use is an allowed use under the industrial park zoning. If we look at those standards, the property greatly exceeds most of them. The minimum lot area, setbacks, lot coverage, floor area does not apply, maximum height, parking. I did make note and highlight that landscaping, and remember this is the old code. The old code's requirement is 10% of the commercial area to be developed. They are proposing 400 square feet. In that the applicant interpretation was a 4,000 square foot building. So they were disturbing with the building 4,000 square feet, so 10% of that is 400 square feet. I'll get to that in a little bit. I want to make note that also that under the old code, the Planning Commission, all the standards are written for the Planning Commission. So I'm quoting from the code in here so that that's why it's referring to the Planning Commission, not the City Council. The code had some conflicting provisions that talked about Planning Commission reviewing them and also the City Council reviewing them. In this case, we were considering that the City Council would review this also because there is provisions in that. So the Planning Commission did review this project on April 1st, 2025, last year. They did vote 3-0 to recommend approval. Since that time, the applicants have been working with staff and the city's contract engineer to adequately address submittal issues. In addition to 2 waivers that they're asking for, one of the major issues was drainage, which with the adjacent parcel. Let me go back to the site plan. So the adjacent neighbor here had some concerns with drainage, which was running down this property line. The applicants have worked hard since April to ensure that the submittal meets all city requirements. I've been going back and forth with the contract engineer to make sure that that has happened. And the contract engineer is online if you have questions on that. At this point, he feels that it does address all the drainage issues. So as far as development standards, I think we went over, they meet all of them except for 2. Landscaping, the 10% of the commercial area to develop would be 10% of the 4 acres, and that's how it was interpreted with the old land use code. They're proposing 400 square feet, which, let's get to it, is this area towards the entrance. It's proposed to be landscaped with decorative rocks and some gravel. I'm not sure the decorative rocks appear to be on site already, and it is somewhat vegetated with sage and natural vegetation in that area. The other issue would be access. Under the old land use code, the driveway materials are required to essentially be paved, but I gave you the language there that was necessary to be met. They're proposing a gravel access drive. The code did clearly state that unacceptable materials are those that, it goes on, and specifically mentions gravel as unacceptable materials. There are no exceptions in the older code for industrial developments or for those without general public customer access. The applicants in this case have requested that you waive this requirement due to the steep grade, the stormwater concerns, and the lack of access by the general public. And essentially, them and their employees are the only ones that would be using that access. Went over the landscaping a couple times. We've always, in the past, considered it to be 10% of the property. Their request is that it's 10% only of the building. So again, they're asking for that to be waived. I provided for you the agency comments. Really, the only significant one is from the city engineer, which is BHI. Andrew is online if you have any questions on that. And I think with that, we'll go with the staff recommendation, which is for approval. There are be 3 conditions that we want to that we would recommend. The first one being to please make it clear, the first one is the one standard, have to meet everything in the code. In this case, it's the older land use code. The second condition, we want to make it clear, and you need to decide if you want to grant the waivers as requested, include that second condition, so that it's clear that they're not required to do any more landscaping than the 400 square feet proposed, and they're not required to pave the driveway. If you don't believe that's appropriate, you can eliminate condition number 2. Condition number 1 will cover those requirements. Third condition is prior to issuance of a final certificate of occupancy, applicant's engineer shall certify that all improvements were constructed in conformance with the approved plans. Again, that's a little unusual, but because they are already operating under a temporary certificate of occupancy, sorry, travel at Christmas got me. We need to word it with the final certificate of occupancy. Are there any questions?
Nancy, I've got a question about the gravel road. As you address that's in our code, that it's unacceptable. I would think that would be even more unacceptable, that being that it's a steep slope, that gravel might, just slough off if you have heavy rain or something. Was that addressed at the P&Z meeting, or?
It was not addressed in that manner. I'll let the applicant speak to that, or perhaps you might question Andrew from BHI, the city engineer.
Right. I think either one would be fine. Andrew, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, this is Bill Lewis, council member. So my question is that gravel usage on a steep hill, I'm just concerned that gravel would just eventually slough off, and then you basically have a road that's unattainable.
Yeah, I do believe that the slopes on the road themselves don't exceed any maximum slope requirements that the city has at this time. The bigger concern for slopes on the site were some of the areas left undisturbed. The gravel was not an area of concern for us.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you. On the same topic with the gravel, I appreciate that under the landscaping waiver that they're requesting, that we have made those landscaping waivers or something similar in the past. Have we made waivers for this gravel type of a situation recently, or can you pull that up without researching further?
Yes, with the independent log, the city council granted the waiver to you. And there was some old pavement on there, but other than that, you granted the waiver to not require the paving due to I believe, due to the heavy equipment and what it might do to the site. The other most recent review in the industrial park was Body by Design, and they have paved, and they're paving their entire parking lot. So,
Thank you.
so it's 50-50.
One more question for you to do with the driveway. From my understanding, the only people that are going to be using this is the employees. Is that correct? It's not a public access.
You should probably direct that to the applicant also, but that's.
Okay.
All right, would we like to invite the applicant up or your representative to speak?
Hi, I can't see what's going on in the room, but this is Laurel Quintanto. I'm the representative for the applicant. I'll just briefly talk first, unless there's someone else standing up in the room.
I think go ahead.
Okay, so thank you, Nancy, for that overview. The applicant agrees with the staff's recommendations and would just ask that council adopt the resolution that the staff is proposing. Regarding the paving variance, that's something that Kevin Kistler will also be available to answer some questions. He'll talk about the grading and why gravel is being proposed here, specifically for helping with the drainage issues. And then another council member asked about other waivers for gravel. We compiled all of the properties in the industrial park that have been paved or have gravel roads, and it really is about 50-50. I can pull up all of those properties if that would be helpful for the council members. And then for the second variance that's being requested, the landscaping, the applicants believe that they meet the 10% requirement for what's defined as developable area. So looking at the site plan, the whole property is not developed or developable, but taking the staff interpretation, we think that this variance is appropriate here. Looking at other city council meetings, there's a quote from Mayor Medina saying that landscaping requirements have never been enforced on the industrial zoned properties. That was in April of 2025. So we think that it would be pretty unfair use of discretion to impose a stricter requirement here. So other than that, I'm gonna let Ms. Thompson speak about the project generally, and then Kevin is available to talk about the drainage and the paving specifically. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jenna Thompson. Me along with my parents own 1880 Industrial Road.
You mind speaking a little more in the mic? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I'm a little nervous. I just wanted to give a little history. We bought the property in 2022. We applied for a grading permit in December of 2022. It was approved by the city. We didn't begin grading until spring of 2023, but the city was there for grading inspections. That grading started on March 1st of 2023. May, June, and July, we had Troutner Geotech, Thomas Engineering, and who else? Huddleston Land Surveying, all doing the work to get prepared to submit a building permit. Engineered plans, cover sheet, site plan, everything was submitted to the city on July 11th. A building permit was then issued on July 17th of 2023. We purchased a sewer tap in April of 23. We granted an easement to Empire Electric in May of 2023, all done in the order prior to having a building permit per your guys' code. Like I said, on July 17th of 2023, the building permit was issued. We paid the building permit fee and a use tax for a total of $10,784.40. Nothing was ever said to us about having to do anything else, so we proceeded with our building. We began preparing the site at the end of July 2023. We had absolutely no issues or concerns until our neighbors had issues with the city. It was then that the city told us that we didn't go through the proper process, which we were not informed about. However, a building permit was issued, so we proceeded and built our building. In April, May of 2024 is when we were notified that there were problems and that we hadn't gone through the city's process, which we didn't know about. And also, just to make note, we are 2 lots away from the city industrial park, the service center. The city came out and performed 7 building inspections. Nothing was ever said to us about not following process or doing anything. Everything was built to code. There were no issues at all until there was an issue. We were issued a temporary certificate of occupancy with special conditions, pending site plan review, like Nancy discussed. Let's see. We got P&Z approval, like Nancy stated, April 1st of 2025, and then we received a notice from the city that our plans were not ready to go to council. So we've been delayed since April of 2025 with this. We were told by Ms. Marchbanks that our engineer couldn't reach out to BHI directly, which hindered our process. We had at least 6 rounds going back and forth with BHI and our engineer, sometimes waiting 2.5 weeks to hear a response from the city or the engineer. The additional work has cost us thousands of dollars in attorney's fees, engineering fees, earthworking, construction loan, stuff that we haven't been able to close out because we haven't got our final certificate of occupancy. And like Nancy stated, we've worked diligently and in good faith to resolve any and all issues at a significant financial and emotional burden to us. And I think I'll have Kevin explain the engineering part.
Thank you.
You guys have any questions for me before he goes?
Thank you, Council. So to address your question specifically about the slope and about the gravel, one thing that to remember is that, again, this development is under the jurisdiction of the previous land use code and not the current land use code. In the previous land use code, the section being referenced is from 5.02, and that section can contextually be interpreted as applying to parking. Now, in the case of the Thompson's development, they have installed a concrete pad for parking, so in that way they are compliant with the land use code of 2023. That same land use code in section 4.02 allows for the use of gravel as a paving surface on city streets and alleyways, provided a minimum width of 15 feet is granted. Now, the use of gravel paved surfaces is generally acceptable within the Colorado Department of Transportation as well as the Federal Highway Administration. So it's really not an aberration to use gravel, especially for as little access as will come in and out of this property. To express your concern about slopes specifically, again, as Bohannon Houston mentioned, the slopes on the gravel roadway are not typically the slopes that would evoke the concern of engineering practices. Essentially, it's not steep enough that the issues you're mentioning would typically be a problem. Now, alternatively, what could be a problem is if they were to pave it, because it is so steep, the pavement being impermeable to water, it could cause severe drainage issues. As the gravel road will allow the water to permeate into the surface, it will help mitigate some of those issues by it being gravel, whereas if it were paved, that water could run down the hill at a high velocity, which could cause potential issues downstream. So as it is now, we don't have tremendous concern in the world of engineering as far as that roadway being gravel. The one concern that was brought up was about having a small paved apron at the top of the road, and that would essentially be to protect any trucks from coming in and out of the property from damaging the existing city street, just by giving it a little bit of a buffer so the wheels don't have to impact the side of the road. Now, I apologize if I bore you with all the technical details, but I did want to make sure to express your concern directly. Before I launch into any other general engineering or specific engineering, were there any other questions from any members of council? Perfect. So, as was mentioned, there were concerns about drainage. Typically in the world of engineering, drainage best practice tries to look at how the water flowed on the land before there was any development. And then what we try to do is we try to make those patterns match the post-development condition. In other words, after we've built a property, we want the water to flow off that property very similarly to how it did before anything was built there. The most recent site development plan that we've submitted represents an agreement between city staff, their consultant engineers, myself, as well as a general agreement between property owners that the drainage as it is designed will in fact work. It will direct any and all drainage away from the southern property line, therefore mediating any contribution to those drainage issues which may have been coming from the subject property, and it will restore the drainage patterns as closely as possible and practical to what the natural condition was. So that's essentially 7 pages of site plans in a nutshell. Again, if there's any specific questions, we can certainly address that.
Have the neighbors been satisfied on the drainage now? My understanding was there was some issues earlier about drainage onto their property. Is that fixed?
So we can't speak to the issues that are created by drainage coming from the property to the south, but we can speak to the issues created by any drainage that may be coming from the property to the north. And any of those issues are fully mitigated by this new plan.
Okay, now tell me what you just said.
In other words, we can direct our water to go the right way, but we can't make anyone else direct water any which way on their own property.
That was better, thank you.
You got it.
Okay, I think we're ready to open this up for public comment then, seeing no other questions. Thank you both.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Council.
All right, so we're going to open this up for public comment. So we'll start about this application.
Sheldon Randall, 1754 Sagebrush Circle. I own STR Custom Coatings in the Industrial Park. I am here tonight because the proposed LePew site plan asks for exceptions that are unfair, inconsistent, and are a direct disregard of the land use code. My business was the last site development approved in the Industrial Park before this proposal, and I can tell you firsthand that my business was required to fully comply with the code, including pavement and landscaping standards. We did not receive variances, and we were required to meet the standards as written. The land use code is very clear about the pavement requirements, yet this site plan does not meet the standards. Even more concerning, staff acknowledges those deficiencies, but still recommends approval through those variances. That raises a serious question. If the code can be ignored, what is the purpose of having a code? Allowing this exception creates an uneven playing field and shows favoritism. Businesses that follow the rules, invest in significant resources, and completed development correctly are now being treated differently than a project that did not. That is unfair to the neighboring businesses who have held the higher standards and will now bear the consequences of this variance. If the driveway is now being described as too steep to meet the pavement requirements, that only proves the larger issue. Had the site development followed the correct review process before infrastructure was installed, the limitation would have been identified and addressed during the planning, not after the fact. The site plan process exists specifically to prevent situations like this. Allowing a variance now because the work is already done sets a dangerous precedent and rewards non-compliance. Failure to follow the proper process should not become a justification for exceptions. It should have consequences. Otherwise, future applicants are encouraged to build first and ask for forgiveness later. I respectfully ask the council to require this development to meet the same standards that every other business in the industrial park has been required to meet. Consistent enforcement of the land use code protects safety, ensures fairness, and maintains trust in the city's development process. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Tiffany Randall, 1754 Sagebrush Circle. I'm also owner of STR Custom Coatings. I want to begin by being very clear. We're not opposed to this business and we're not opposed to growth in Cortez. What we are asking for is really simple, that the city enforce the land use code as it is written, fairly and consistently. When businesses invest in Cortez, they rely on the predictability of the development process. They assume that if they follow the rules, meet the standards, and complete the process in the correct order, they will be treated the same as everyone else. When variances are granted after the fact, the predictability disappears. There is also a serious issue of accountability here. This site plan was submitted by a city employee, someone who knows or should know the land use code and the required development process. That makes the request for after-the-fact variances especially troubling. City staff should be held to the same standards as the businesses and residents they serve, if not higher. Anything less undermines the public trust. This decision doesn't just affect one property, it affects every current and future business owner. It sends the message that compliance is optional and that standards depend on timing rather than rules. That kind of uncertainty discourages responsible investment and weakens confidence in the city's development process. The Land Use Code was adopted for a reason. It balances economic development with safety, consistency, and long-term community value. When those standards are waived, especially because a project did not follow the correct process, the burden shifts to the neighboring businesses that did comply and play by the rules, or they're put off for the future owner of the property to settle it. We want Cortez to grow. We want businesses to succeed, but growth only works when rules are enforced evenly. We respectfully ask the council to uphold the Land Use Code as it is written and require this development to meet the same paving and landscaping standards that others have been held to. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience or public like to comment? All right, we'll close the public comment portion of this hearing for discussion. I have a question about what the current land use landscaping requirement would be if this was started with the new code.
Okay, that might stump me. I'll have to look it up, but the landscape provisions in the new code are very different. They actually have materials and buffers and requirements. I did not try and figure out what would be required on this property.
Okay, I was just thinking like percentage wise.
And
I can look it up while let me go back.
And Nancy, I think you said before, I just want to clarify that it's not typical to base the amount of landscaping on the size of the building, but to base it's usually on the size of the property, correct?
Since I've been reviewing the site plans, we based it on the size of the property. Waivers were granted for independent log. They were not granted or requested for body by design, and that's the last two I reviewed in the industrial park, yeah.
I have a question regarding, or I really am seeking clarification here. So would it be a simple thing to say in a straightforward manner that the new land use code is probably more restrictive than the one that was in place at 2009? Is that correct? As far as the driveway and the landscape requirements, is that?
I would say it's correct about the landscaping requirements, but let me check. I haven't looked at that for a project yet. We haven't had a site plan submitted under that new land use code that I'm aware of. The access requirements actually in the new land use code do not require the paving if there's no public access to a property. So I believe that under the new land use code, they would not have been required to pave.
So to clarify it, to the best of your knowledge right now, the driveway situation is probably equal as far as restrictiveness in the current code as to what it was in 2009, but we're requesting a waiver on the 2009 standards regardless of that. And regarding the landscaping, our current restrictions are more restrictive.
If you mean you're required to put in more landscaping, I would say yes.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the public comments brought up a good point about consistency, and we've been unfortunately very poor with that in the past. But I do, I was quoted by the representative that I have said in the past that we've been terrible about enforcing the 10% landscaping on the industrial park, and I think the sentiment too was that was always excessive. I looked up what that would be for this property if we based it on the size, and that's 18,000 square feet, if I did the math right, which is a lot. I guess for me, that is more up for debate than the driveway material.
I had a question about the apron, the road apron. Is that in place? I saw in the site plan it's listed as new, but is that currently in place already, or would it be in place, I guess would be the question.
I apologize, we're looking at the landscape standards. Could you repeat the question?
The apron, the asphalt apron meeting the road, is that currently in place? Is in the site plan it was listed as new. I guess I'm asking, is that in place or would it be in place?
I don't know.
Can you stop sharing your screen so Laurel can see what's going on? It's not currently in place. We have not done any work or done anything to the property since everything started with. We would put it in place, but we have not done anything.
But so it is part of the site plan you're asking to be approved, is that it?
Yes.
Madam Mayor, I have a question for you. Is it appropriate to ask one of our individuals that made public comment a question?
Great question. Yeah.
Sure. I have a question for the gentleman that spoke that, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Jeff?
Sheldon.
Oh, you mentioned that you weren't granted a variance, and my question is, what did you even ask for a variance, and if so, what was that, and do you remember why you were denied?
No, we didn't ask for a variance. We just followed the rules and
Okay.
we just went with
Okay, but it wasn't that you requested something and...
I never requested a variance.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, I'm unclear on one thing, and the original concern with the neighbors that were negatively affected with the drainage, has that, I'm hearing that has been completely cleared up. Is there anyone here that can speak to that? Or I read in the submitted paperwork that it, I'm sorry, let me get to the right document here. Based on the memorandum that comes from BHI to the interim director of our community and economic development, in the last page it states that the final site stabilization and stormwater management approach addresses previously identified deficiencies, mitigates reported runoff concerns to adjacent properties, and demonstrates compliance with the city's engineering review expectations. Is that true? I mean, that's the thing I'm looking for. Has that been resolved?
This is Laurel Quinto remotely. I can speak to the dispute between these neighboring properties. The owners of the neighboring property, they own the doodad storage. There has been a settlement and they don't dispute approval of this site plan review.
Thank you.
And then to address your question, Councilwoman Randall, as the engineer of record of the project, it will be my responsibility to verify that how these installations, as they're designed, do in fact get deployed. The current design does fully mitigate those drainage issues. And with the additional grading changes we proposed in the current site plans we're discussing, we will make sure that those get implemented in a way that it fully resolves those issues.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I would make one comment in that I believe this whole situation is unfortunate, that there has been some missteps and The city, I think, has totally accepted our responsibility in whatever has occurred. And I'm trying to find a way forward while recognizing the public comment and appreciating the fact that the rule of law is rule of law. But we're sort of at this place right now. Do we cut the baby in half and try and distribute? I mean, I'm to use an old metaphor, but I'm trying to find a good way out of this, and I'd appreciate any comment from anyone else on council as far as what their ideas might be, but I certainly do recognize the unfortunate position that a lot of people are in at this point.
On the landscaping, if someone had a 30-acre lot and they were building a building for construction or whatever it may be that's 40 feet by 80 feet, we would require them to landscape that entire lot as if they were doing it on a 30-acre land piece. And I think there should be exceptions, because I think that's just not reasonable. It just isn't common sense. And I think that's one of the reasons we have variances. Yeah, there's that.
I agree with Councilmember Spruill on that. You know, there's always situations. We can make rules and regulations, but there's always situations that come up that are unexpected that we never thought of, and that's why we have variances. So, in my view, I think we've talked about this long enough, and if no other council members have any discussion, Madam Mayor, I move that City Council approve Resolution Number 1, Series 2026, a resolution approving the site development plan for the building construction on property located at 1880 Industrial Road, Cortez, Colorado, in the Industrial 1 Zone with the conditions as stated in the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Lewis and seconded by Spruill.
Just to clarify before we move on, that does include the application with the waiver of the access road surface requirements and acceptance of the applicant's proposal for, basically you're recommending the staff recommendation. Is that correct?
Yes, with the landscaping and the gravel road.
Thank you.
Randall,
Yes.
Dobry,
Yes.
DeHaven,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Spruill,
Yes.
Kiefhoffer,
Yes.
Medina.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna move on to number 6 on our agenda, unfinished business. We have none tonight. Number 7 is new business. 7A is ordinance number 1353, series 2026. We will consider a first reading, setting the ballot questions to amend the city charter for April 7th, 2026 municipal election, presented by Patrick Coleman, our city attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I believe our IT folks are going to put my PowerPoint. There we are. And I'm not sure what the CC is on there. The CC.
That's the Via Cloud.
Yeah, it's not something I can do, so. Anyway, I will start and ask IT to remove the Via Cloud. I don't know if I can remove it, but anyway, so just a quick summary. As we mentioned, this is a first reading, so we will have a public hearing on second reading in 2 weeks. But I did want to kind of go through what we've prepared briefly so that the public and council understands where we are. The ordinance, after a lot of discussion at a couple of work sessions, we broke the amendments into 4 separate ballot questions. The first ballot question contains a lot of more or less non-substantive changes, spelling errors, typographical errors, creating gender-neutral references, and some other non-substantive changes. And those changes are represented in Exhibit A, which is part of this ordinance. And they include basically the entire charter, because almost every section had some of these changes that needed to be made. So you'll want to read the entire charter, and it's in a track changes format, so it shows the new changes in blue and the deletions as a strikeout also in blue. The ballot questions have summaries of the changes, and then each ballot question refers to a exhibit in the ordinance. Ballot question 1 contains a summary of numerous miscellaneous substantive amendments, and that's Exhibit A. That's the very long exhibit. Ballot question 2 contains a summary of proposed changes to Article 2, Section 3, and Article 3, Section 2 of the Charter. These amendments clarify the qualifications, duties, and compensation for City Council. And I'll show you that actual text here next. If I can keep there we go. I broke it into 2 parts because it deals with 2 separate articles. But essentially you could see what the proposed changes are. Primarily we wanted to clarify that a sitting city council member cannot hold a paid position with the city until 1 year has passed since they left office. And part 2 is probably the one that will generate perhaps some discussion, and that's the compensation. If you'll recall, the last time the compensation was changed for City Council was in 2006. As we discussed, we have changed this, and the proposed change provides that the council by ordinance will determine the compensation from time to time, rather than having it set in stone in the charter. And I think there was a lot of discussion about, because it's so difficult to change the charter, it probably should be by ordinance. And that's the way it is shown under ballot question number 2. Number 3 contains a summary of proposed changes to Article 3, Section 4 of the Charter. And these amendments clarified the location of city council meetings, the ability for electronic participation, and help ensure that the charter and ordinance number 1346, which was passed last year, are consistent. The details of these proposed amendments are contained in Exhibit C of the ordinance. But essentially, if you'll recall, when ordinance number 1346 was passed, there was some discussion on whether or not the charter prevented remote participation. and there was certainly a disagreement on council, although the ordinance did pass, and I believe it was a 4-3 vote. This change conforms the charter provision to what the ordinance already provides, so that there's no conflict or implied conflict there. Question, and you can see ballot question number 3, the changes in the text essentially incorporate the language from Ordinance 1346 into the charter. Ballot question number 4, contains a summary of proposed changes to Article 4, Section 1. And these amendments allow the city to exercise its home rule authority to enact alternative term limits that differ from what the Colorado Constitution provides. And a detail of those proposed amendments are in Exhibit D. I point out the Constitution, that provision was incorporated into the Constitution, and it essentially addresses situations where there are only 4-year terms. And some jurisdictions in Colorado, including the city of Cortez, have 2-year terms, which complicates making the term limits based on a 4-year term. Our language, and I contacted some jurisdictions that had 2-year terms, and they said it's a difficult process. Steamboat said they tried it twice and they couldn't figure it out, so they just left it the way it was. But in any event, if you look at the language on this slide down at the bottom, the additional language, it talks about 8 consecutive years of service, so long as the 8 years are separated by 4 years of separation from council. In the instance where a candidate for council is elected to a 4-year term that would cause that candidate to exceed 8 years of consecutive service, the candidate will automatically be declared elected for a 2-year term, regardless of how many votes they received. And so that addresses a situation where, say, the candidate receives a 2-year term and then runs again and gets a 4-year term. So at the end, they've served 6 years, and they run again, and by our rules, they get at least in the top 3 of vote getters, which would entitle them to a 4-year term. And of course, 6 plus 4 makes 10, which exceeds the 8-year limit. And based on this, it would require that candidate to be automatically elected to a 2-year term rather than a 4-year term, so that they wouldn't exceed the 8 years. Here in the next slide is the Constitution language, and I've highlighted the stuff that's applicable to home rule municipalities. And in here it says if it's 2 years or shorter in duration, no elected official shall serve more than 3 consecutive terms. So that's a different way to say it. But there's also the possibility that somebody resigns before their term is up, so somebody else is appointed to that term or runs for election and is elected for the balance of the term. They wouldn't have a full, maybe even a full 2-year term. I think our language will address that, but I wanted to give you the constitutional language so that you can compare. Again, that's ballot question number 4. That kind of concludes the language. Now, I know it's a lot of information, and certainly The Exhibit A is very voluminous, so I would encourage you to read it, and fortunately it is in track changes, so you don't have to read every word. You can go to the changes and see if there's anything that's problematic. I would certainly recommend, if anybody, you can certainly discuss tonight any issues that you see, but obviously the public hearing in 2 weeks is where we can really make tweaks based on the public's input or staff or council input. I will note that in ballot question number 1, one of the kind of non-substantive issues that it states that it's addressing was that it was to codify term limits into the charter. And obviously we have since added that ballot question 4, which addresses that issue. So my recommendation would be that if you choose to introduce and approve this ordinance on first reading, you do so with the amendment to deleting the term "to codify term limits into the city charter" from ballot question number 1.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
So my understanding is that all of the blue that has been crossed out or interjected is kind of like, this is getting close to the final draft. We're working on the final draft right now. And so if there is what we might think is an error in that, do we speak with you now about it, or do we wait until next week?
Sure, you can speak right now, or you can send me an email between now and next week, and you know, if they're strictly typos or something like that, we can make those adjustments prior to presenting the ordinance on second reading.
Okay.
You know, if it's a major substantive change, I would recommend that you just bring it up for discussion next or in 2 weeks, and council can decide whether or not they agree with your substantive change or with the way it was presented.
I'm not sure that I have a substantive change. I just wanted to open it up for discussion for the council members, because I had a question as to regarding Exhibit D, and that's the one on Article 4, where council was just talking about the things that were included in the state constitution versus what we've got written here. And it has to do with the council members are limited to serving 8 consecutive years. And then it says, after the passage of 4 years, may serve 8 consecutive years again. I just wanted to know what council felt about requiring a 4-year interval in between serving those terms, instead of going with a 2-year interval, because we also have that 2-year thing in there. And I just wanted to bring that up and see what anyone else's thoughts were.
Yeah, certainly it would be up to the council to decide what was appropriate in that instance, and either way would be legally supportable, so I would leave it back to the council to discuss. And again, this is first reading, but if there seems to be a consensus based on your discussion, we can modify that language before second reading.
I think I'd be okay either way, either 4 or 2. The thing I think to me that's important is that there's a term and then a break and then a new term.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I mean, the only reason I guess that a 2-year term would make some more sense is there are some years that we really don't have enough candidates to run. So I'd rather have someone who has somewhat recent experience on council to potentially run again if they should choose to do so. But ultimately, I don't think it really makes a difference between 2 or 4.
Yeah, I think the 2 years is fine. That's actually, I assumed that it was a 2-year break because of how our cycles work anyway, so.
So council, just to be clear, we're hearing 2 years.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
both of us are in green. Yeah. Did we forgo removing those departments that we don't have from the charter, or is that?
What we did was, we eliminated the two that don't exist currently, and that would be the Public Health Department and the Department of Sanitation. We left the other departments and significant changes to the reference to those departments in the charter. And I think there was a lot of discussion that perhaps that was a bigger bite than we wanted to take for this go-around. So essentially, they will remain unchanged. But the two that we don't have, and to our knowledge we have never had, have been deleted as part, and that's part of the Exhibit A.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure.
I thought I read that we had removed the reference to fire department. Had we not taken that one
Yes,
off?
and that was actually deleted in a prior
Okay, thank you.
amendment. I'm not sure why they still included it when they codified it. You know, they had it striked out and said deleted. But yes, that was removed previously.
I think that this ordinance and then the 4 exhibits reflect what we worked on kind of the last quarter of last year. And if anyone else doesn't have any comments, I'll make a motion. I move that City Council introduce ordinance number 1353, Series 2026 on first reading, and set the ordinance for second and final reading and public hearing on January 27, 2026.
Second.
With the change that Councilor Randall suggested.
And the
And
change.
the deletion of the codification of the term limits in question number 1.
And the deletion of, yes, what our attorney said. With those 2 changes is my motion.
And I would second that again. I assume that was the case.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay. Motion made by Dobry and seconded by Lewis.
Randall,
Yes.
Kiefhoffer,
Yes.
Dobry,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Rule,
Yes.
DeHaven,
Yes.
Medina.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on to 7B on our agenda, ordinance number 1354, Series 2026. This is an ordinance approving 245 East Montezuma for historic designation, presented by Helen West, our Community and Economic Development Specialist.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. This is just going to first reading, so I'm not going to elaborate, but do look it over. It's a cool property. So just looking for 245 East Montezuma to be listed on the City Register of Historic Places. And the motion tonight would be to set the second reading and public hearing on January 27, 2026.
You know, I'd just like to point out that it was a unanimous decision by the Historic Board, and I've been very impressed with that property, with the changes that they've made since they've purchased that area.
It is really beautiful, and I know that they have more plans, but they want to keep the historic flavor of the building, which is really lovely. I do believe both applicants for this property and the next one on the agenda will be here for the next reading, because the second reading is always more exciting.
So I will move that the City Council approve on the first reading ordinance number 1354, Series 2026, and set the ordinance for second reading and a public hearing on January 26, 2026.
Second.
Motion made by Randall and seconded by DeHaven.
Kiefhoffer,
Yes.
Dobry,
Yes.
Spruill,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
DeHaven,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Medina.
Yes. All right, 7C on our agenda is ordinance number 1355, Series 2026, where we, an ordinance approving buildings located at 410 East Empire Street for historic designation and include this property on the city register of historic resources and set for second reading and a public hearing. Presented again by Helen West, our Community and Economic Development Specialist.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor and Council. So same thing, this is for 410 East Empire Street, another very cool property with a deep history in the city of Cortez. I won't get into the details tonight, but just the motion is asking for that second reading and public hearing on January 27, 2026. Again, this wasn't unanimously supported by our Historic Preservation Board, with some caveats that I can explain next time. Nothing to do with their application, just to do with the process with the state of registering these kind of things with the state of Colorado. But that was taken care of well before getting to council, so asking for that, and we'll go into more detail if you approve for second reading.
The only thing I would mention is that on the information page that I'm assuming the public can see as well at the bottom, the blue hot links say 410 East Montezuma.
Oh, that that was probably my mistake. I apologize.
Yeah,
I will correct that for next time. Thank you.
For second time, yeah. Having said that, I'd like to make a motion that City Council approve on first reading ordinance number 1355, Series 2026, and set the ordinance for second reading and a public hearing on January 27th, 2026.
Second.
Motion made by Kiefhofer and seconded by DeHaven.
Randall,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Sproul,
Yes.
DeHaven,
Yes.
Dobry,
Yes.
Kiefhofer,
Aye.
Medina.
Yes. All right, 7D on our agenda is resolution number 2, Series 2026. Council will consider approving an application for a grant between the City of Cortez and History Colorado to inventory 8 commercial buildings and 4 schools for potential historic significance. Presented by Helen West, our Community and Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council, for the third and final time. I think this is going to be a record. We can do it. 3 things in under 10 minutes. All right, so this one is yet again a CLG grant. So as you guys are all aware, Cortez is a certified local government, giving us grant money or access to apply for grant money that is specifically for CLGs through History Colorado. We have received 11 of those grants, totaling almost $200,000. Again, the grants paid for various surveys and also the CCC Historic Archaeological Cultural Resource Survey that Woods Canyon did last year and then is also conducting further research on. So this grant is looking for no more than $25,000. The final budget has not been set, but that is the max grant award to survey 8 different historic properties. Those properties are not clear on your memo, so I just wanted to list them here so you guys know. But the properties in question, and these come from historic preservation is complicated, from a different survey that said these are the they have a list of all the potential historic buildings in town that haven't been surveyed, and maybe we should think about surveying them. So that's where we get these buildings. The 8 commercial properties include the Masonic Temple on 302 East First Street, the Cortez Mill, Bluebird Flower on 309 North Market, the KRTZ radio station at 2402 East Hawkins, Empire Electric offices at 801 North Broadway, the Johnson Building, which is the old hospital at 925 South Broadway, the dry cleaners at 500 South Market, the property at 105 North Sligo Street, and then 4 of our schools, including the Cortez Middle School, the Beach Street Preschool, Downey Elementary School, and Mesa Elementary School. By surveying these properties, the property owner is not required to do anything. They don't even have to talk to whoever the consultant is doing the survey. All of these surveys are conducted using public documentation or pictures from the public right-of-way. So there's no encroachment on public property in any way. I would, if you guys can take out your pencils, Council, thank you. I would like to amend the motion if I can. I believe that's allowed, just to make it clear so that you don't have to see me 5 times when I ask to accept the award and then accept the contractor. unless, of course, our city manager deems that we need to bring that back to you. So I would like to amend that to, I move that resolution number 2, series 2026, supporting a grant application of no more than $25,000 to History Colorado to inventory 8 commercial buildings and 4 schools in Cortez, be approved, and further authorize the city manager and mayor to sign all documents necessary to proceed with the grant if awarded. If that is amenable to council or Drew. And I
Yeah, we
think-
need to select one or the other, mayor or I.
Oh, okay.
In this case, it really should be the mayor.
I think it's so as well. Knowing History Colorado, it is the mayor that needs to sign all those.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Could you go just a little slower?
Absolutely. I can also bring it up to you with my stuff. So I move.
Have that in writing by chance, Helen, that we can
Right here.
present to perhaps the mayor and then council from there?
Yep.
If you can approach.
Okay. Can you see that? Okay. Oh, because it's number 2. Okay.
I move that resolution number 2, series 2026, supporting a grant application of no more than $25,000 to History Colorado to inventory 8 commercial buildings and 4 schools in Cortez be approved, and further authorize the mayor to sign all documents necessary to proceed with the grant if awarded.
Second.
Motion made by DeHaven and seconded by Lewis.
Sproul,
Yes.
Kiefhoffer,
Yes.
DeHaven,
Yes.
Dobry,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Medina.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to 7E on our agenda, award the 2025 Recreation Center Slide Tower Restoration Project. Presented by Creighton Wright, our Director of Parks and Recreation.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to start off this topic with a brief story, and then we'll get into the actual award. So in the middle part of May, our lifeguard and maintenance staff came to us and said, we have concrete falling off the slide tower. And as you can imagine, that was pretty disturbing. So we immediately ran over and looked at it, and sure enough, chunk of concrete fell off of the slide tower. And this is one of several. And so that's what we're here to talk about today, and that is repairing the slide tower based on concrete falling off of the slide tower. The story really goes into, I'm going to go on a quick tangent because I'm so proud of how we solved it. We immediately closed down the slide tower, closed down the leisure pool, which the slide tower hangs over, and reached out to an engineer. We started 2 paths immediately. One is, how can we get the leisure pool back open? And secondly, then, how do you repair the slide tower? So what I'm proud of is that our staff came up with a really creative solution to get the leisure pool back open, and that is to wrap the slide tower with nylon construction fencing. It's basically used in big cities with high-rise buildings when they're renovating a high-rise, and they wrap these buildings with this material that prevents things like concrete or hammers or whatever falling off the building and hurting someone below. So we found a vendor. Our staff actually installed, general services and our rec center staff installed this netting completely around the slide tower as a matter of getting it safe and so that we can open the leisure pool for the community to use. So really proud of that creative, nice solution that got the leisure pool back open. Alternatively, if we didn't find that solution, it would still be closed today. So now, on to the award. The second issue was figuring out how to repair concrete from falling off of the slide tower. We reached out immediately to our on-call engineering service, Schmuser Gordon Meyer Incorporated, and they began conducting structural evaluations of the slide tower within the rec center. They did several initial assessments and felt that a repair was viable and warranted. As we moved through the process of doing assessments and evaluations, they recommended that we subcontract with Janney Elster Associates Incorporated, WJE. They are a concrete specialist to complete the assessment and then also develop a design that can be put together for a bid for contractors to bid on. The core samples and follow-up testing completed by SGM and WJE revealed that some of the previous repairs that we had done were not deep enough and didn't really solve the problem, and that we had chlorine-induced corrosion into the concrete down to the structural rebar. That's a piece of rebar that's corroded. It's bloomed. Bloomed meaning it grew, and that's what put pressure on the concrete and ultimately pushed it off of the slide tower. And they determined that a repair was viable and cost efficient as compared to a complete replacement. And I know it's probably swimming around your mind, well, what would a complete replacement cost? It's in the neighborhood of $1 million to $1.5 million. If you think about it as a huge 30-foot tall tower inside of a building that needs to be completely taken down to ground and then built back up, which is the reason for the expense. So that brings us to where we are today, which is awarding the construction contract to repair the slide tower. The documents, the scope, and the technical documents to make the repair are more than 90 pages thick, which identifies all kinds of things that engineering firms do and has specialty contractors do to ensure that the concrete can live successfully in a wet, highly chlorinated, and high-use environment. Ultimately, the goal of this project is to repair the damaged areas, preserve the slide tower for at least 10 years. That was the standard that we put on the design team when we were moving forward with it. And they, kind of conversely, if we did everything that they recommended, felt like it likely has an extended lifespan of in the neighborhood of 15 years after the repairs had been made. So this solution both repairs the slide tower as well as rejuvenates the concrete. Much like asphalt, if you put a fog seal over asphalt, it extends the life. That's effectively what we're doing here with this project. The 3 scope items included in the bid are removing and repairing the spalled and delaminated concrete down to the structural rebar and replace the rebar where the corrosion has existed or has occurred, installing sacrificial anodes to attract the corrosive electrons in the chlorinated water, thereby improving the longevity of the existing concrete, and sealing the structure in a traffic coating to prevent water penetration while also providing some texture and grip because it's in a wet environment. So now a little caveat. Despite having all this detailed testing and evaluation being done, that equipment and the assessment can only look into the concrete so well. There's a bit of variability that should be expected when trying to make this kind of a repair, and we're not going to know exactly how much damage there is until the demolition occurs, until they're out there with jackhammers and start breaking stuff apart. So with that, SGM has recommended that we maintain a contingency that can be allocated as needed and at the unit cost included in the current bid. This approach allows us to increase the unit quantity on the fly based on actual conditions after the demolition has occurred and pay for the contractor service in a predetermined manner up to the contingency amount, which SGM is recommended at $30,000. That sets the upper limit on this project award. I mentioned a couple sentences in there about the value and the benefit of doing it this way as opposed to a change order. If we get to the point in which we exceed or we meet that $30,000 need, we would have to kind of step back, reevaluate, and then ultimately bring a change order back to council to move forward with a repair that's greater than the $30,000 contingency. So next section is getting into the bids. I'll go through the bids quickly, an evaluation of each of them, and then ultimately the recommendation. The scoring matrix was included in the council memo, and there was one minor error on that was, I think, emailed and then put at your places this evening. There was one of the scores were off by 1 point. So that was corrected and shared with you. It does not make a substantive difference in how we recommend the scoring. Advertisement went out in October of 2025. We received 3 bids in December. Those 3 bids were TKF Contracting, Inc. at $172,211, Structural Preservation Systems, LLC at $211,181, and Western Waterproofing Company, Inc., DBA Western Specialty Contractors at $242,000. Submittals that we received, despite being the lowest cost, TKF Contractors bid packet quality was low. There's an error in this council member. It's actually 19 points rather than 20. Of the 65 available points, overall, TKF offered little information on the project approach, their experience, past performance, and lacked support of other necessary categories we used for the bidding process. TKF received the lowest overall score, which weighs both cost and bid quality. Moving on to the second bidder, Structural Preservation Systems received the highest overall score, taking into account both their costs and their valuation criteria. They provided significantly more thorough answers on bid categories. They also shared detailed past experience with projects similar to what we're going to be dealing with. They demonstrated quality control, technical experience, planning, and coordination that was superior to TKF. This contractor provided also the most efficient timeline, in which the other 2 contractors were recommending 90 and 97 days to repair. Structural Preservation Systems said they could do it in 50 days. And considering that this is in the natatorium, and while that work is being done, the natatorium would have to be closed. That's important. Cutting a whole month off of their timeline is significant. And lastly, Structural Preservation Systems were active throughout the bid process, including coming to the site and reviewing the conditions in person, as well as providing questions to SGM through our bid process. The final bid, number 3, was by Western Specialty Contractors, and they provided a similar bid packet as did Structural Preservation Systems. However, they were $31,000 more, as well as proposed the longest time to make the repair at 97 days. So with that, Structural Preservation Systems has been deemed as the most responsive and most responsible to the bid criteria included in the bid request. Although they are not the lowest bid, its interest, proposal package, and cost proposal cumulatively scored the highest points in the evaluation criteria. Structural Preservation Systems delivered on numerous similar projects in complex aquatic environments. Furthermore, we reached out to SGM and WJE, and they felt that Structural Preservation Systems were competent and could successfully complete this project as has been bid. So staff recommends awarding the bid to Structural Preservation Systems with a $30,000 contingency that staff can allocate. Let's see here. So financial impact and how this is shaking out monetarily. The rec center enterprise, we budgeted $250,000 to make this repair. We have $60,000 allocated for the assessment and design. That most of that has been spent, leaving $190,000 available for construction. Their bid is $211,181. And as I mentioned earlier, SGM is recommending a $30,000 contingency to address any variability that might come up in the repair. With the contingency, the total project award is $241,181. It's $51,000 over budget, and it'll be absorbed within the Rec Center Enterprise Fund. Staff's recommendation is that council award the 2025 Rec Center Slide Tower Restoration Project to Structural Preservation Systems, LLC for $211,181 and allocate $30,000 in contingency that may be allocated by the Parks and Recreation Director, and authorize the city manager to negotiate, sign, and execute a contract. And that is all for my staff report, and I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Creighton. I appreciate the thorough presentation and how your staff handled that whole situation. I was curious, are there plans to try to implement this project while the outdoor pool is open, so that some of those people can go to the other pool and we can still collect revenue there?
Yeah, great question. So we have two projects that we expect to be coming together relatively closely together. This one, as well as a natatorium, rec center natatorium renovation project, including resurfacing, redoing the play structure, and all those kinds of things. We want to try as best we can to overlap those two if we can. And so we're not really super sure on the timing yet. It is our goal to do it while the outdoor pool is open, although I'm not willing to promise that right here and today. If I can get both these done in one compressed timeline, then that's what I'm going to try and do. If it ends up that I have this project at, what did I say it was, 57 days, and then the natatorium renovation project at another 10 weeks, and that's going to be 15 weeks in total, yeah, that's going to cause some problems. So yes, it's the goal, but no, I don't feel we can promise that right now.
Not a question, but a comment. I mentioned quite a while ago, when we make decisions like this, our decision is no better than the information that's provided. And I applaud you on your narrative here, and I love the explanation between the three bidders and why you made that decision. So it makes our job much easier when we have the information provided. One other note I'd make is it's very common when you're dealing with concrete and renovations to always have a contingency in there because, as you mentioned, there's an unknown in there. So do we have any? If we have no other comments,
I'd like to make a real quick comment. On the 30,000 contingency, I can this is a personal thing, I can just about guarantee you they're going to find something that's going to cost $30,000. And if they do that, then it's going to bring them right close to Western Specialty Contractors. So their bids are almost identical. The only thing that's happened is Western already put in that 30,000 contingency, whereas the structural preservation possibly did not, just to get the bid. However, I still think the structural preservation is the person to go to, but that's just my observation.
Yeah, Councilmember Sproul, just as a bit of a safety mechanism, we do have SGM and WJE on board as we're going through this process, and their whole part as we shift into construction is to validate any requests that we might get for a cost that's over what's already included in the budget. So we do anticipate having to evaluate any additional needs by, frankly, it's WJE is a specialty here. They're the ones that are going to have to confirm it and either agree or disagree that it's a warranted cost. So while I hear you, we're trying to put a a bit of security back there and knowing that there's a third party who has specialized experience in just doing this kind of work.
That's excellent.
And maybe before you read it, I just want to provide an acknowledgement. Jenny Bandai, our assistant director, is a project manager. She developed this staff report, so I can't take credit for it. And credit is due to Jenny, and also Casey and his team have worked pretty extensively on making sure that we get this put together right. So certainly several people that are owed credit.
I move that council award the 2025 Recreation Center approve an additional $30,000 contingency that may be allocated by Parks and Recreation Director, and authorize the city manager to negotiate, sign, and execute a contract.
Second.
All right, a motion made by DeHaven and seconded by Sproul.
Kiefhoffer,
Yes.
Dobry,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Sproul,
Yes.
DeHaven,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Medina.
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Creighton. Okay, we're moving on to 7F on our agenda, a possible selection of successful bidder for the 2026 Cortez raw water valve replacement project, presented by Casey Simpson, our interim director of public works.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first thing tonight is the raw water valve replacement project. We're seeking a qualified water infrastructure contractor to install a new water valve in the old hydro plant at the water treatment plant facility. The associated work includes installation of a new flow control valve, process piping specific to the intake headworks, installation of structural support members, and demolition of existing concrete structures. Likewise, there is an existing micro hydro plant within the intake building that needs to be removed. It has not been working or in operation for several years now. Removal of the micro hydro plant assets will be done by the city staff and will include removal of electrical substructures and associated wiring as well. The primary goal is to remove the existing infrastructure that's there and install a new raw water control valve that will allow us to meter all the raw water that comes into the plant more accurately, as required by the Colorado Division of Water Resources. We put out a bid, or an advertisement for bid. We had 550 people look at the project. 2 responded. TKF, Contracting Inc., and SICAR. Both bids were evaluated by the water treatment plant team and the city's purchasing agent. And the staff recommended, well, there's the score sheet that is attached. TKF came in significantly cheaper, and TKF has done a lot of work at the water plant, and the city staff believes that they do good work and that they're best positioned to fulfill the requirements of this project for the best overall value to the city. And so if agreed upon, the city council, or the staff recommends choosing TKF Contracting out of Lewis, Colorado for this project. Pending any questions.
What was the original budget for this project included in the budget?
I think it was $470,000.
Thank you.
Can you please explain how this adds the needed redundancy into our system? How does this contribute to that?
It's part of an overall larger redundancy project that we're looking at. This is required by the state to monitor. We're being asked to monitor, actually for all of our hydrological assets, the inflow and outflows of all those. So we do need to have this raw water control valve. We are also going to be looking at the replacement of the entire raw water control line, or the raw water line, in essence, all the way for the mile back from where it splits off. So it's part of a larger project. In that project, we would be looking at potentially bringing in a second line or some sort of redundancy should that main line fail. And this is part of that overall project. It would allow us to control more efficiently and effectively control the inflow of water should there be some sort of reason to do so, if there was a failure of our reservoir or something associated upstream with the water plant. So it's not the complete solution, it's part of it.
I move that City Council award the contract for the 2026 Cortez raw water valve replacement project to TKF Contracting, Inc. at its bid price of $350,447 and authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign a contract on behalf of the city for this purpose.
Second.
Motion made by Dobry and seconded by DeHaven.
Randall,
Yes.
Kiefhoffer,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Haven,
Yes.
Dobry,
Yes.
Sproul,
Yes.
Medina.
Yes. All right, we're moving on to 7G on our agenda, possible selection of successful bidder for the professional architectural design and engineering service for office administration building renovation at the old Empire Electric Building, presented by Casey Simpson, our General Services Director.
All right. As you all are aware, we're under contract to take ownership of the Empire Electric Building located at 801 North Broadway. As this project's evolved and background information on the buildings become available, and different possibilities have presented themselves, we have come to the conclusion that it makes sense to do an initial assessment of the building for the best possible value for the city, for staffing needs. And there's two primary paths to be taken there, whether it becomes an office building or the long-term home of the Cortez Police Department. In seeing that need for initial assessment, we put out an RFQ for qualified architecture and engineering firms to provide that initial assessment. We had a really great spread of bids come in for that work. And as you can see, a wide range of price associated with that work. All of the bid packets were really great and thick. The city has done past work with Reynolds and Ash. We felt that their bid was comprehensive, covered all the key points, and came in well below all of the other bids in price. And although there were some other great bids, very well written, the price component and the past work with the city weighed out with our decision there, and the staff recommends that Reynolds and Ash and Associates out of Durango be selected for the professional architectural design and engineering initial assessment of the old Empire Electric Building.
Mr. Simpson, can you tell me, are we going to actually get two separate views on the option A and option B, and are they going to sort of decide which they think is the best one for us to go and push that one forward?
They're going to give us an engineer's opinion of probable costs on each view.
Okay.
And then that decision evolves into what it might cost to do choice A or B. And then they're also going to be interviewing department heads to get a better understanding of what staff growth and existing office space requirements exist, so that we can make a really good decision. Because if it was a police station, there are specific needs that would have to be changed in that building that would be much more costly than if it was going to be an admin building. So we just want to make sure we're making the right choice from the get-go.
Well, and I think we had a third option of, like, if we did office space right now, but to eventually transition it to police
Yeah, if we do office space right now, there's very little renovation required, so we could postpone a potential police usage later. Furthermore, there could be, if the long-term vision is police station, there could be CDOT-related traffic components that would take a while. So that could enter into the discussion as well.
I move that the City Council award the contract for professional architectural design and engineering services for office administration building renovation project to Reynolds, Ash and Associates, PLLC, at its bid price of $48,270, and that the city manager be authorized to sign a contract on behalf of the city for this purpose.
Second.
Motion made by Randall and seconded by Lewis.
DeHaven,
Yes.
Kiefhoffer,
Yes.
Dobry,
Yes.
Spurl,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Medina.
Yes. All right, we're going to move on to 8 on our agenda, draft resolutions and ordinances. We have none. So number 9 on our agenda is city attorney report.
With the upcoming executive session, I will remain silent. No report.
Okay. And then city manager report.
None tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, and then 11 on our agenda is city council committee reports. 11A is the mayor's report on the workshop. We had no workshop tonight, so we'll move on to other board reports. We can start with Councilmember Kiefhoffer.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I was unable to attend the PARFAB board meeting because it was the city or the county-wide volunteer fair on the same evening, but I do have a very quick report. There were concerns raised by the dog park people about muddiness that has been there since the early part of November. Some more concerns by the Battle Rock School students regarding Park DeVita Playground. The master plan update, RFP, is to be released in the next few weeks. The youth member recruitment, Creighton and I will be talking with someone from Southwest Open School. We have several students at this point who are interested in becoming youth members of PARFAB. The annual plan was reviewed and discussed. There's some notable items with certain members felt should be prioritized higher than others. And there's a significant conversation around the rec center sales tax.
Great, thank you. Okay.
I was unable to attend the meeting of the Historic Preservation Board, but Councilmember Spruill went in my place as I was out of town.
And then the Arts Committee did not have a meeting this month, so go ahead, Dennis.
I did attend the Cortez. I did attend the Cortez Historic Preservation Board, and I was honored to do so. That board really impressed me. It has a work plan for the entire year of 2026. The committee is well organized. They have a lot of vision for Cortez, and they want to educate and entertain any and all persons about the history of Cortez and our area, and I was extremely impressed with that committee.
Golf Advisory Committee is scheduled to meet this Thursday at 8:30 at the golf course.
The library board meeting was canceled. Everyone was sick and there was no quorum.
Great. Okay, we're going to move on to 12 on our agenda, our second public participation section. Individuals may not comment on an item on the agenda, but there's no limit to the number of speakers and no overall time limit. Each person has 3 minutes. Do we have anyone who'd like to speak? All right, moving on, we'll go to 13 on our agenda, executive session, or other items of business. 11A is executive session.
I move that council go into executive session for a conference with the city attorney and outside legal counsel for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions regarding the recreation center sales tax pursuant to CRS section 24-6-4024B.
If I could, before we do that, I'd like to go back to 13 other items of business real quick.
we can do that.
Oh, yes.
I would like to suggest, and I think the city council is probably going to be on board with this, but I got a phone call from a hangar member down at the Cortez Airport, and they really would like to have an advisory board for the airport, and I think that's a fantastic idea. So I would just ask if the rest of the city council agrees, and something we could have the city manager look into.
All right, yeah, because I think our airport director's been looking into that as well, so we could have a conversation about that at some point.
And then, with that being said, I'd like to second the move to executive session.
Thank you, Dennis. All right, motion made by Dobry, seconded by Spruill.
Lewis,
Yes.
Haven,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Kiefhoffer,
Yes.
Dobry,
Yes.
Sproul,
Yes.
Medina.
Yes.
There you go.
All right, it is still January 13th, 2026, and the time is 10:08 p.m. The executive session has concluded and council is reconvened into open session. Those persons participating in the executive session were myself, Mayor Rachel Medina, Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Spruill, council members Matthew Kiefhofer, Lydia DeHaven, Bill Lewis, April Randall, and Robert Dobry. Also participating was City Manager Drew Sanders, City Attorney Patrick Coleman, outside legal counsel Dalton Kelly and Don Bookhart, City Finance Director Randy Bailey, and Parks and Recreation Director Creighton Wright. No adoption of any proposed policy, position, resolution, rule, regulation, or formal action occurred during the executive session. If any member of council or a member of the public believes that the subject matter of the executive session was not statutorily authorized, or that the discussions that occurred in executive session strayed from the announced subject matter, please speak up now. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Lewis and seconded by Dobry.
Kiefhofer.
Aye.
Randall.
Yes.
Spruill.
Yes.
Dobry.
Yes.
DeHaven.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Medina.
Yes. Okay, good night. Thank you all.